We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Aleph Amud Aleph in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 41a. The Gemara continues that Bar Kapara darshins, a person who's angry, lo also biyado elarag zanusa, all that he's going to come up with at the end is just the anger. There's going to be no benefit, no reward for his anger. Rashi says, lo ala biyado bischaro, as his reward, he's not going to get anything. Alakichesh bisara brag zanuso, he'll just weaken himself with his anger. Lo nistaker klum, he won't get any reward, he won't get any benefit at all. And the Gemara continues, Ul Adam Tov, and for a good person, Matimim Osum mi primaisav, we give him to taste from the fruits of his labor, he will be rewarded for his good actions. And the Gemara continues, V'chol she'eino lo b'mikra v'lo b'mishnah v'lo b'derech eretz, anybody who's not part of psukim, he doesn't learn psukim, he doesn't learn mishnah, he doesn't act properly, dor hanami menu, one should take a vow not to get any benefit, not to derive any benefit from such a person. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Uva Moshev leitzim lo yashav, he doesn't sit among those who are scornful, who are leitzim. Moshavo Moshev leitzim, such a person who has no mikra, no mishnah, no derech eretz, he sits among the leitzim, and therefore people should not join such a person. Rashi says, Dor nader, the person should take a neder, people should take a neder not to get any benefit from such a person. Shenemar of Moshev leitzim lo yashav, like it says, in the area where the leitzim are, the person shouldn't sit. This individual who doesn't have any of these qualities, he doesn't have mikra, mishnah, or derech eretz, but ma yisasik, what's he dealing with? Im lo b'leitzanos, if not leitzanos, he must be part of the leitzim, and therefore, again, other people should not join that individual. Hadron alocha isha niknes, we will return to you, paraka isha niknes. This is the end of the first parak of Meseches Kiddushin. If you're enjoying these videos and this channel, please like, share, and subscribe, and take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now begin the second parak of Meseches Kiddushin. And the parak begins with the Mishnah, Ha'ish mekadesh bo uvishlucho, a man can be mekadesh a woman, he can do it himself, or he can do it with a shliach. Ha'ish, and likewise a woman, miskadeshes bo uvishlucho, she can receive her Kiddushin herself, or she can have it received through her shliach. Ha'ish mekadesh es bito keshinara bo uvishlucho, and a man is able to be mekadesh his daughter, meaning to say he can receive a Kiddushin on behalf of his daughter to give her away in marriage when she is a nara. He can do that directly, or he can do that with a shliach. And Rashi explains, Ha'ish mekadesh bo uvishlucho b'gemara yalefla. The Gemara is going to learn this out. Kishi nara, when she is a nara, again, that is the first 6 months when she is mature. And Rashi says, V'chol shekein kishi katana. Now, certainly he's able to do that when she's a katana. Im kibel kiddushin mekudeshes. If he receives a kiddushin on her behalf, she is mekudeshes. V'haidenok nara. Now, the reason why the Mishnah says nara, why not say katana? Orech ara ashmin, and it's teaching us the general way it's done. The katana lechatchila lo, because lechatchila, a father is not supposed to do that for a katana, for a girl that's a minor. Kedem mefarish b'gemara, as will be explained in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, Hashta b'shlucho mekadesh. Now, if it is true that a person is able to be mekadesh a woman with a shliach, bo mi boy, do we even need to say that he can do it himself? Of course he's able to do it himself. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, mitzvah bo yoser mi b'shlucho. It's more of a mitzvah if he does it. It's preferred if he does it himself, rather than using a shliach. Kihad Rav Safra, it's like we find by Rav Safra, Machrech Reisha, he would singe the head. That's talking about the head of the animal. This was in preparation for Shabbos. The point is, he didn't have an agent prepare things for him for Shabbos. He prepared the food himself directly. And Rava Molach Shibuta, Rava would salt the fish before Shabbos. He did that himself. He didn't have a shliach do it. And that's the same idea over here. It's mitzvah bo yoser mi b'shlucha. When it comes to Kiddushin as well, it's preferred if he does it himself rather than appoint a shliach. Rashi says, mitzvah bo yoser mi v'shlucho d'chiyasik gufo b'mitzvahs makabel schar tzvei. He gets more reward when he himself is doing the mitzvah. Machrech reisha, he singed the head of the animal l'chavet Shabbos. Again, that's a preparation of the food for Shabbos, and shibuta is a dog, shibuta is a fish. And so again, that's the idea of the Mishnah to teach us the principle, mitzvah bo yoser mi b'shlucho. And the Gemara continues, Ika Diamri, there are those that say, Baha Isura Nami Ispa. In this case, it's actually even an Isser, it's even somewhat prohibited for a person to use a Shliach for the purposes of Kiddushin. Kid Rav Yehuda Amarav, like Rav Yehuda says, the Rav says, the Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav, because Rav Yehuda says, the Rav says, Asr la'adav she'ikadesh aso isha ad she'iren. It's forbidden for a person to be mekadesh a woman until he sees her, and that could be the potential problem, having a shliach be mekadesh the woman. Maybe he hasn't even seen the woman yet. And why is that a problem? Shema yira bo dvar meguna, because maybe when he does see her, he'll see something that is displeasing to him. V'tiskana olav, and then she'll be somebody that he doesn't like. V'rachmana amar, and the Torah says, v'yahavta l'reacha kamocha, you have to love your friend like yourself. You have to love your fellow Jew. And in this case, he's going to come to dislike her, and therefore it is preferred, it is actually even forbidden that a person should be mekadesh a woman without seeing her. And Rashi says, "B'hoi surah namiika." There's even an isser. Im yochol lekadesh ba'atzmo. If he's able to be mekadesh himself, v'kidesh al yidei shliach, and then he goes ahead and does it through a shliach, that's already an isser. The mitzvah sheyirenu, because it's a mitzvah to see her. Shemet eskana olav, because we're afraid maybe she'll be displeasing to him. And the Gemara continues, V'chi itmar de Rav Yosef aseifa itmar. According to this approach in the reish of the Mishnah, so the statement that Rav Yosef made of mitzvah bo Yosef mi b'shlucho, that was going on the end of the Mishnah, where it says at the end of the Mishnah, ha'isha miskadeshes bo v'shlucha, a woman can receive Kiddushin herself directly or through her shliach. And so on that part of the Mishnah we said, hashta b'shlucha mikdasha bo mi bo, if she's able to receive with a shliach, do we even need to say she can receive it herself? Of course she can. Why is the Mishnah saying that? Amar Rav Yosef says, mitzvah ba Yosef mi b'shlucha. It's a mitzvah for her to do it directly more than her shliach. Ki hadar Rav Safra machar chreisha, like Rav Safra who singed the head of the animal. Rava molach shibuta, and Rava salted the fish. But the Gemara continues, Aval Baha Isura Lesba. But in this case, it's not an Isser, meaning to say, if the woman were to appoint a Shliach and not see the husband, from her perspective, that's not really an Isser. Why? K'di Reish Lakish, like Reish Lakish says. T'yam Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish says, Tav L'meitav Tandu Mi L'meisav Armalu. It's better to be two people. A woman, her perspective is, it's better to be married, even if the husband doesn't really live up to her expectations. A woman would prefer to be married rather than to be alone, rather than to be a widow. And so therefore, in the situation of a woman, let's say she doesn't receive the Kiddushin directly, she doesn't see her husband, she has a shliach, that would not be considered to be an isser. And Rashi says, so even though she didn't see him, leka isura. From her perspective, that's not an isser. It's an isser from his perspective. Lomar shematira bo dvar meguna, because maybe we'll say it's an isser from her perspective. Maybe she also will find something displeasing with him. Diamar eish lakish tav lemeitav tandu. The mashal hu shanashim omros. This was a saying that the women used to say. Al baal koldu, who let's say they'd have a husband, but he wasn't really a husband that was impressive in any sense. But they would say shehu tov losheves im shnei gufim misheves almana. The expression was, it's better to be together with two bodies, two people, rather than being a widow. Tan means a guf, a body. Du is shnayim, again two bodies. That's going to be better. Rashi here notes, now maybe you'll ask, there is an isser when she has a shliach, because he's giving it to her shliach, and he doesn't see her, so therefore there is an isser involved. So Rashi says, that's true, there's an isser from his perspective. But our mission is talking about from her perspective. That she's able to accept directly, or with a shliach. That's the point over here to say that there's no isra as far as she is concerned. But the Reisha, which is talking about from his perspective, they're already, as we said, it's an isra for him to be mekadesh a woman without seeing her. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "Ho'ish mekadesh is bito kishi nara." Man is mekadesh his daughter when she's a nara. Kishi nara in kishi katana lo. The Gemara says it sounds like it's only when she's a nara, but when she's a minor, he's not supposed to receive kiddushin on behalf of his daughter who's a minor. Messiah leila Rav, and the Gemara says this is a support for what Rav said. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, because Rav Yehuda said that Rav said V'itema Rebbe Lozer. Some say it's Rebbe Lozer who said this. Asr la'adam she'ikadesh es bito k'shehi ketana. It's forbidden for a person to accept the kiddushin on behalf of his daughter who is a minor. Ad shetigdal, until she gets older. V'tomer, and she says Biploni ani rotza. I want to marry this particular individual. Otherwise, by a ketana, that's not l'chatchila, something that should be done. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, shalichus minolan. From where do we know the concept of shalichus? The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, v'shilach melamed shuosa shliach. It says v'shilach, it actually says v'shilcha. We're learning out from the pasuk. It says v'shilcha, when he divorces her, he sends her. So from the language of v'shilach, that shows that he can appoint a shliach. And v'shilcha, and then we darshan from the phrasing of the word as v'shilcha, from the understanding of the word as v'shilcha, melamed shuosa shliach. That teaches that she can appoint a shliach. And then it says it again in the pasuk, v'shilach v'shilcha. It says it a second time v'shilcha, and we learn from there, melamed sha'ashliach osa shliach. That teaches that a shliach is able able to appoint a shliach. The psukim here in full are Ki'igach ish isha, first pasuk in Sefer Devarim Chav Dalet Aleph, Ki'igach ish isha v'ala v'haya, im lo simtza chen be'enav, a person marries a woman, she doesn't find favor in his eyes, ki motza be'ervas davar v'chasav la sefer krisus, he finds some kind of erva, some kind of ervas davar, he writes a sefer krisus, he writes a get, v'nasan biyada v'shilcha mi beiso, he puts it in her hand, he gives it to her hand, and he sends her from his house. That's the first v'shilach v'shilcha that we are darshaning. And then the second one is in Perek Chav Daled, Pasuk Gimel, Usneo ha'isha acharon v'chasav la sefer krisus. The later man who marries her, he hates her, he gives her a sefer krisus, v'nasan biyada v'shilcha mi beiso. Again, he puts it in her hand, he sends her from his house. And so that's the second v'shilach v'shilcha, that teaches that a shliach can appoint another shliach. And the Gemara says eshkechon begerishin, so we find that this is true by gerishin, by divorce, that there's a concept of shlichus, Kiddushin menolan, from where do we know a concept of shlichus? By Kiddushin, by the marriage. V'chitema diyolef mi gerishin. Now, if you're going to say that we learn Kiddushin from gerishin, ma'ala gerishin shekain yeshna bal karcha, but what's unique about gerishin is that a gerishin can happen against her will. And so therefore, maybe by something which can happen against her will, there you can have a concept of shlichus as well. And so how do we know that it's true by Kiddushin also? Amar Kra, and the Gemara answers, it's because the pasuk says, v'yotza v'haisa. It says that she's going to go out, then she's going to marry another man, and therefore we can compare the two. Makish havaya liyitzia, we compare the marriage to the divorce. Ma yitzia mashvi shliach, just like by divorce, it's possible to appoint a shliach, to appoint a messenger. Af havaya nami mashvi shliach. So too when it comes to marriage, it's possible to appoint a messenger. And Rashi explains, V'shilach begerish and ksiv v'shilchami beiso. Again, by divorce it says v'shilchami beiso. Umidolo kasa v'girsha, from the fact it doesn't use the language of v'girsha, it uses the language of v'shilcha. L'lamdeinu ba sheishos hashliach lo l'chget lishto. That teaches us that the husband can appoint a shliach to bring the get to his wife. And then v'shilcha also teaches malamid shoishos hashliach, that the woman can make a shliach l'kabel gita, to receive her get kariba v'shilcha lo mapikei. You can read the word as v'shilcha without the mapikei. V'shilcha with the mapikei means that he sends her out, he divorces her, but you can read it as saying again that she is able to make a shliach. V'shilach v'shilcha shnei pamim nemar binyan, as we said, it says v'shilcha again a second time, so we learn again that a shliach can appoint another shliach. And then the Gemara said shekain yeshnan bal karcha, the Gemara said gerishin is unique because it can happen against her will. Hilkach isnu nami alidei shlichus. Therefore, you would think maybe their shlichus works, maybe not by Kiddushin. And ultimately, the Gemara says we learn it from v'yotza v'haisa. We compare the Kiddushin to the gerishin, just like by gerishin you can make a shliach, so too by Kiddushin you can appoint a shliach. And the Gemara continues, but what about that which we learned in the Mishnah? Ha'omer l'shluchot, say to Rome, if a person says to his messenger, go and take off truma on my behalf, Torim kedas balabayis, so he should take off truma in the amount that this balabayis, that this person normally takes off. People who take off different amounts in terms of truma. People who are stingy take off less. People who are generous take off more. And so he should take according to his understanding of what the balabayis would do. V'meinu yodea das balabayis. Now, if he doesn't know what the balabayis would do, so then Torim bebeinanis, so then the shliach should take off the middle amount, echad mechamishim, which is 1/50th. And Rashi says, Torim kedas balabayis, lafi mashu makir balabayis, to what he understands that the balabayis would do. Emeino yafa, if he's generous, so eino roy, or he's stingy. Ein yafa echad merabayim, those who were generous would give 1/40th for truma. Ein roy echad mishishim, those who were stingy would give 1/60th. Shat truma lo nemar bashir mefurish, because by truma there is no shir that's given in it. There's no exact amount. Elo reishis degancha, it just says you give reishis degancha, you give the first of your grain. The afilu kolshu, on a doraisa level you can give even any amount. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis.